period of time, we're now into like the day 74, 75 of our California quarantine, which is loosening up. Restaurants are open, bars are open, people are getting their hair cut. I haven't done that yet. But I'm just curious, the COVID and coronavirus absolutely impacted your life and your business. You were working for the XFL. I thought awesome. You got Vince McMahon. You got plenty of money. You got TV deals. You got people's appetite for football. This will work this time around. Could you just tell us what you were doing, what happened, and what you were thinking that whole time?
Well, we were in the middle of we thought, a successful season. I mean, I'll have to say that when all this went down, we proved that the product.
Wait, can we say hi to this little cutie who's next to you?
My daughter Mila. Say hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
So we felt that our product was good. It fueled the appetite of the consumers out there that wanted more football. Mm-hmm. I think the tweaks to the rules that we had, I think the tweaks to the broadcast that we had was appealing to a lot of people. We were in the middle. We were finished with week 5, starting on week 6, and it started to get a little battles in the Eastern Conference between 2 or 3 teams trying to jockey for that first position. The West, LA was actually starting to play a little better. So there was starting to be some intrigue because teams were starting to actually have their identity shown on the field. And it was one of the major concerns were some of the players, especially LA was going to play in Seattle, and we got a lot of calls. Some of the players saying, I don't feel comfortable playing in Seattle. So Commissioner Luck had probably twice-a-day conversations with Vince. What should we do? Then it went from we're playing with fans to, all right, let's make weekly games without fans, to finally shutting down and saying it was just too risky. So we're like, okay, we're shutting down for the rest of the season. So we started planning for year 2. We started getting budgets in place. Then the information came out that, well, maybe the college season will move to the spring. Then we said, well, if we do that, well, what would it look like if we moved our season to maybe November through January? So we were doing a bunch of contingency planning. And then when they shut our offices down, I came back to Pittsburgh with my family. And about 2 weeks later, we got a call and said, hey, it's an all-hands-on mandatory meeting, April 10th at Friday at, I think it was 12 o'clock. And then that's when the boom was lowered. And at first, I mean, when I got the notice that we were having a meeting, I assumed, okay, we're going to be furloughed. He's going to shut it down until we can get some more concrete plans on when we're going to start back up. And I understand that. As a businessman, you're going to be carrying a whole league and you don't even know when you're going to start up. So I understood that. But for him to drop it, it was a surprise to everybody.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I really thought the XFL had a chance this time. Hey, next time we talk, I would love to actually.
Now isn't Vince trying to buy it back from his own bankruptcy?
He said he just came out and said he wasn't. But I said if he was, that'd be a brilliant move. And someone asked me, they said, well, how does this happen? I said, look at it this way. He bought a house in his mom's name, had her live there for a year, didn't pay any taxes, any utilities, had it foreclosed on, and then bought it from foreclosure for pennies on the dollar, which would have been a brilliant business move. But he says he's not in for that.
You get a chance to meet him at all?
I actually interviewed with him, and then early on, I'd have meetings with him probably once a month. I mean, and he's a billionaire for a reason. Incredible mind. Little unorthodox in how he thinks business, but he's proven that he's successful. And I thought he'd have a personality like you see that he portrays at the WWE. No, he's a straight businessman. When you go in and see him, you better have a jacket on and a tie and be presentable.
Think you could take him? I mean, you've seen him in the ring.
No, the guy is still yoked. I wouldn't even try to test him.
I've heard some stories about Vince. Like if you sneeze in front of him, he looks at you like you're weak or something. Like there's some wild stories out there about Vince. Anything ever happen with you?
I'll just say this. I've worked for 2 or 3 billionaires, and when you know you've made it and you're a billionaire is before you go in to talk to a billionaire or meet with somebody, they have somebody that says, hey, here are the do's and don'ts. So I'll just leave it at that.
Do you think the second time around, because I thought the XFL had a much higher chance because they were prepared when it rolled out of the gate. Did you think that his first run through with the XFL taught him more for the second run? And were you really surprised when he said that, all right, this is it, I'm out?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And one of the major things he said, and when I was interviewing him, is he rushed to market. And he wanted a longer runway, and we had a very long runway, and we used it to our advantage. We made sure we had enough time. I think we had 6 weeks with our players and coaches together. Last time in the first iteration, the coaches met the players 4 weeks before the first – no, I think it was 3 weeks before the first game. So we kind of set it up similar to an NFL offseason. We had mini camps, then we had a long training camp. And so we had the nice runway. And then also we had a lot of time for iterations on the rules, the different rules. So we tested those probably 5 or 6 times. So the runway helped us be able to come out the gate with strong football. And I was totally surprised when he shut it down. I think this was talking to him was his baby. He was looking to have a legacy outside of WWF. And he's a big football fan. And I mean, it's just who could plan for a pandemic?
Do you think there will ever be another league outside of the NFL? Because it seems to never work out for whomever it is that tries it, regardless of how much money you have, what season you want to play it. It seems as if outside of college football, that nothing else will be able to compete with the NFL.
I think it's getting harder and harder with every iteration that fails, because now you got to think about the people you're working with, the facilities or the equipment people or the uniform people. Now they've been burned, AAF and XFL twice. So now they're going to say, before we do anything, we need everything up front. So you're going to have some deep pockets. And then second of all, I think there's a different model out there that can make something like an alternative league a little more successful. And I'd have to give you an NDA before I give you all that information. There are different ways to model it where you can reduce costs and reduce actually the number of players and have like a central location type thing, similar to what a lot of leagues are talking about now, like the NBA being in Orlando and Vegas and just working right out of there. Those are the type of models that I think you'd have to explore to have a successful alternative football league.
Well, let me ask you this, and just because I know we're getting deep into this, and I know you got to go, but what kind of money are we talking about that McMahon couldn't hang on to this? Rather than say shut down and we'll just come back next year, what sort of financial commitment was he going to have to make to get you to year 2, given the shutdown of the league due to the pandemic? Approximately. I'm not going to quote you on it.
Approximately. I would say to carry us, but the problem was when's the start date? When are we going to start back out? But to carry us, let's say we were going to start again back in December of this year. So he probably would have had to float with probably maybe 12 to 15 million. But here's the issue. It wasn't him floating the XFL. It's when there was no income coming in from the WWE. When you shut down WrestleMania, you have 3 events a week that have no availability to get ticket sales in there because fans can't see. Then you're siphoning that money from his bread and butter, and he's trying to keep that afloat. So he had this, as a businessman, you got to shed one or the other. You can't shed your proven moneymaker to float and keep the unproven moneymaker afloat. So let me shed that and concentrate on my core business and make sure I can get through this pandemic in my core business. So as a businessman, I get it.
All right. Dude, that's a phenomenal explanation.